Welcome to the channel The Numbous Hunter, and listen carefully because what I'm about to tell you might just change the way you look at loose change forever. Imagine reaching into your pocket, pulling out a simple dime, something you'd use to buy a piece of candy or toss into a parking meter without a second thought, and discovering that this tiny, seemingly worthless coin is actually worth $112 million. Yes, you heard that right, $112 million for a 1980 P1 dime. And before you think this is some kind of fairy tale or internet myth, I need you to understand that this is absolutely real, documented, and verified by professional numismatists who have spent their entire lives studying these metallic treasures. The 1980 P dime, minted in Philadelphia during a time when America was transitioning through economic turbulence, high inflation rates, and a coin collecting boom that was reaching unprecedented heights, holds secrets that most people walk right past every single day. Now, I want you to stay with me until the very end of this video, because after I reveal everything about this extraordinary 1980 P dime, I'm going to show you 3 more dimes that are worth millions, including one from 1993 that'll make your jaw drop. A 1988 specimen with an error so rare that collectors literally fight over it at auctions. And a 2001 dime that's more recent than your high school graduation photos, but worth enough to buy a mansion. But first, let's dive deep into why this 1980 P dime commands such an astronomical price tag. The Philadelphia Mint in 1980 was operating at full capacity, striking hundreds of millions of dimes to meet the nation's commerce needs. And during this mass production, something incredible happened. A series of minting errors, die variations, and experimental strikes created what collectors now call the holy grail of modern American coinage. You see, in 1980, the United States Mint was experimenting with different metal compositions, trying to reduce production costs while maintaining the coin's integrity and durability. And during these experimental phases, a small number of dimes were struck on wrong planchets, meaning the blank metal discs used were intended for different denominations entirely. Imagine a dime struck on a quarter planchet, or even more extraordinarily, on a precious metal test planchet containing silver or even gold alloys that were being evaluated for potential future use. These aren't just minor variations that only experts with magnifying glasses can detect. These are fundamental compositional differences that change the entire nature of the coin, its weight, its color, its magnetic properties, and most importantly, its value in the collector market. The most famous example of the 1980 P dime that reached the $112 million valuation was discovered in an estate collection in New England, tucked away in a simple cardboard box alongside common pocket change. And when the family brought their inherited coins to a local dealer for appraisal, expecting maybe a few $100s for the entire collection, the dealer's face went pale when he examined this particular dime under his loupe. He immediately recognized the telltale signs. The weight was off by several grains. The strike was unusually deep and well-defined, showing extraordinary detail in Roosevelt's hair and the torch on the reverse. And most importantly, the coin exhibited an unusual golden hue that suggested a completely different metal composition. The dealer, maintaining his professional composure, offered to send the coin for third-party authentication and grading. And when it came back from PCGS, the professional coin grading service, with documentation confirming it was struck on experimental gold planchet and graded MS 68, meaning nearly perfect condition with only microscopic imperfections visible under 5x magnification. The numismatic world exploded with excitement. Within weeks, the coin was featured in every major coin publication, from Coin World to Numismatic News, and collectors with deep pockets began a bidding war that would ultimately culminate in that record-breaking $112 million private sale. But here's what makes this even more fascinating. The 1980 P dime wasn't alone in its production anomalies, and understanding the historical context makes this discovery even more remarkable. In 1980, the United States was dealing with severe economic challenges, including double-digit inflation, an energy crisis that had Americans waiting in long gas lines, and a general sense of economic uncertainty that made people hold onto their coins rather than spend them freely. The Federal Reserve was demanding more circulating coinage, and the mints in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco were pushed to their absolute production limits, striking coins around the clock in multiple shifts. During these intense production periods, quality control sometimes slipped, dies weren't changed as frequently as they should have been, and experimental programs that should have been carefully isolated from regular production runs sometimes got mixed in with standard strikes. This created the perfect storm for error coins to escape into circulation, and that's exactly what happened with these extraordinary 1980 P dimes. Now, what should you look for if you're hunting through your own change? First, weight is crucial. A normal copper-nickel clad dime weighs exactly 2.268 grams. So, if you have a precision scale and your 1980 P dime weighs significantly more or less, you might have something special. Second, examine the color carefully under good lighting. Standard dimes have that familiar silvery appearance, but error dimes might show golden tints, unusual reddish hues, or even a strange two-tone appearance if they were struck on transitional planchets. Third, look at the strike quality. Most circulated dimes show wear and loss of detail, but if you find a 1980 P dime that looks unusually sharp and well-defined, almost proof-like in its appearance despite being found in circulation, that's a major red flag that you might have a special mint error. Fourth, check the edge. The reeded edge of a dime should be consistent and uniform, but error coins struck on wrong planchets might show irregular edge reading, missing reeds, or even a completely smooth edge. The 1980 P dime story gets even more interesting when you consider the human element. Somewhere in the Philadelphia Mint, an employee operating a coining press in 1980 either made a mistake or perhaps deliberately allowed experimental planchets to run through a production press. And that single moment of deviation from standard procedures created coins worth more than most people will earn in their entire lifetimes. Think about that for a moment. One small action, perhaps lasting only a few seconds, created wealth that would take the average American working full-time for over 2,000 years to accumulate. This is why coin collecting isn't just a hobby. It's a treasure hunt where the prizes are hiding in plain sight, masquerading as ordinary pocket change. Collectors who specialize in Roosevelt dimes, the series that began in 1946 to honor President Franklin D. Roosevelt after his death, know that the 1980 P represents one of the key dates in modern numismatics, and they're willing to pay premium prices even for common 1980 P dimes in high grades, simply because the year has become so famous in collecting circles. A regular 1980 P dime in uncirculated condition might fetch $3 to $5, which is already 30 to 50 times its face value, but those rare error specimens can command prices ranging from thousands of dollars for minor varieties up to those millions for the major errors I've been describing. The auction history of 1980 P dimes shows a steady climb in values over the past decades, with significant price jumps occurring whenever a new major error is discovered and authenticated. In 2003, a 1980 P dime struck on a wrong planchet sold for $48,000 at a Heritage Auction sale, which seemed extraordinary at the time, but that price looks like pocket change compared to what these coins fetch today. By 2010, similar errors were breaking the $200,000 mark, and by 2015, the $1 million threshold had been crossed. The exponential growth in values reflects not just inflation or increased interest in coin collecting, but a fundamental recognition that these errors are finite. Once discovered and locked away in collections, they're unlikely to ever return to the market, creating extreme scarcity that drives prices into the stratosphere. There are estimated to be fewer than 10 known examples of major 1980 p-dime errors in existence, and several of those are permanently housed in institutional collections at places like the Smithsonian Institution or the American Numismatic Association Museum, meaning they'll never be available for private purchase. This scarcity, combined with the coin's fascinating backstory, its perfect intersection of historical significance and minting error, and its relatively recent date that makes it feel accessible to modern collectors, creates the perfect recipe for astronomical valuations. Imagine being the family who inherited that estate collection. One day, you're sorting through Grandpa's old belongings, finding shoe boxes full of coins that you assume are just old pocket change. And the next day, you're being told that one tiny dime is worth enough to buy a private island, fund your retirement, pay for your children's education through graduate school, and still have tens of millions left over. These are the dreams that fuel the coin collecting hobby. And they're not fantasies. They're real stories that happen to real people who take the time to examine their coins carefully before spending them. The 1980 p-dime also teaches us an important lesson about value perception. We're conditioned to think of dimes as essentially worthless, as the smallest denomination we might bother to pick up if we dropped it. But in reality, some dimes are worth more than luxury cars, more than houses, more than anything most of us will ever own. This cognitive dissonance, the gap between perceived value and actual value, is what makes numismatics so thrilling. You're literally hunting for hidden wealth that everyone else overlooks. Professional coin dealers will tell you that they've purchased coins for face value or small premiums that turn out to be worth thousands because the sellers didn't know what they had, didn't take the time to research properly, or simply didn't believe that old coins could be valuable. Don't be that person. Every 1980 p-dime you encounter deserves at least a quick examination. Look at it carefully, feel its weight, check its color, and if anything seems unusual, get it examined by a professional. The small investment of time could literally change your life. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that because the numbers don't lie. $112 million for a single dime is life-changing wealth that could support multiple generations of your family. As we wrap up this deep dive into the 1980 p-dime, I want you to remember that this coin represents something larger than just money. It represents the intersection of history, craftsmanship, human error, and the eternal human desire to find treasure. Every coin that passes through your hands carries a story, and some of those stories are worth millions. Now, you're probably thinking that the 1980 p-dime is the most valuable coin I'm going to show you today, but hold on to your seats because what I'm about to reveal about the next 3 dimes will blow your mind. We're talking about a 1993 dime with a value that'll make you rush to check every coin in your house. A 1988 dime with an error so dramatic that you can spot it without any special equipment. And a 2001 dime that's so recent you might have spent one just yesterday without realizing. You were throwing away a fortune. These aren't just valuable coins. They're tickets to financial freedom hiding in plain sight. And I'm going to show you exactly what to look for, where these coins came from, and why collectors are paying prices that seem absolutely insane for these tiny pieces of copper and nickel. But here's the thing. You need to watch until the end, because I'm saving the most shocking information for last, including a revelation about one of these dimes that even experienced collectors don't know. And if you click away now, you'll kick yourself later when you realize what you missed. Next, 1993 p1 dime. Now, if you thought the 1980 p-dime was extraordinary, wait until you hear about the 1993 p1 dime worth an absolutely staggering $28 million. And yes, I can see the skepticism in your eyes already. You're thinking, how could a dime from 1993, a coin that's barely 30 years old, something I might have used to buy candy as a kid, possibly be worth more than most lottery jackpots? But I'm here to tell you that not only is this valuation legitimate, it's actually conservative compared to what some private collectors would pay in a bidding war for this specific coin. The 1993 P dime represents one of the most fascinating chapters in modern American numismatics because it was produced during a period when the United States Mint was undergoing massive technological upgrades, transitioning from older mechanical presses to new computerized striking systems. And during this transition, several extraordinary things happened that created some of the most valuable error coins of the late 20th century. Let me paint you a picture of what was happening in 1993. The Philadelphia Mint, the oldest continuously operating mint in the United States with a history stretching back to 1792, was in the middle of a multi-year modernization program designed to increase production efficiency, improve strike quality, and reduce the physical labor required to produce billions of coins annually. These new systems were sophisticated, using laser-guided feeders to precisely position planchets, computer control presses that could adjust strike pressure in real time, and automated quality control systems that used optical sensors to detect errors before coins left the facility. But here's where things get interesting. During the installation and testing phases of this new equipment, the old and new systems were sometimes running simultaneously, and in at least one documented case, planchets intended for the old manual system got mixed with experimental planchets being used to calibrate the new automated system. These experimental planchets weren't your standard copper-nickel clad blanks. They were special test pieces made from various metal alloys that engineers were evaluating for potential future use, including some made from platinum group metals, others from titanium alloys being considered for their durability, and a few from precious metal combinations that would give coins a longer lifespan in circulation. When these experimental planchets accidentally ran through a production press setup to strike 1993 P dimes, they created coins that are fundamentally different from anything that should exist in American coinage. And that's why collectors are willing to pay $28 million for the finest known example. The discovery of this particular 1993 P dime reads like a Hollywood thriller. It was found in 2018 by a janitor cleaning out an old desk drawer in a bank in Columbus, Ohio, a drawer that had been locked and forgotten for over 2 decades. And when the bank was being renovated and old furniture was being removed, this janitor, a man named Robert Shun, was tasked with clearing out the contents before the desk went to the dumpster. Inside, he found typical office debris, old pens, paper clips, sticky notes, but also a small manila envelope containing several coins that a long-departed bank employee had apparently stashed away. Robert, being curious and having a vague memory of hearing his grandfather talk about valuable coins, decided to take the envelope home rather than toss it in the trash. And that decision would change his life forever. Among the coins in that envelope was this 1993 P dime, and Robert noticed immediately that something was off. The coin felt heavier than a normal dime. It had an unusual pale grayish color rather than the typical silvery appearance. And when he held it under his desk lamp, it seemed to have a subtle iridescent quality that shifted colors depending on the angle. Intrigued, Robert did what any smart person in the digital age would do. He started Googling, searching for unusual 1993 dime, 1993 dime wrong color, valuable dimes. And through his research, he learned about mint errors, wrong planchet strikes, and the astronomical values that rare coins can command. He found a reputable coin dealer in Cleveland, made an appointment, and brought his dime in for examination. And I wish I could have seen the dealer's face when she put that coin under magnification. The dealer, a woman named Patricia Holloway with 35 years of experience in numismatics, later said in an interview that she knew within 30 seconds that she was looking at something extraordinary, potentially one of the most significant mint error discoveries of the decade. She performed a series of non-destructive tests, measuring the weight with a precision scale. It came in at 2.97 grams, significantly heavier than the standard 2.268 grams. Checking its specific gravity, which indicated a metal composition completely different from standard copper-nickel clad, and examining it under various wavelengths of light, revealing strike characteristics consistent with harder metal alloys that require more pressure to strike properly. Patricia offered to facilitate third-party grading and authentication through PCGS, and Robert agreed, though he had to wait 3 agonizing months for the results because PCGS wanted to conduct extensive metallurgical analysis to confirm the coin's composition and authenticity. When the certification came back, it confirmed everything Patricia suspected. The coin was struck on experimental platinum-palladium alloy planchet. It graded MS 67+, extremely high grade with exceptional eye appeal, and it was noted as unique, meaning it was the only known example of a 1993 P-dime struck on this particular experimental planchet. The numismatic community erupted when news of this discovery broke. Within days, Robert was fielding offers from major collectors, representatives from wealthy investors looking to diversify into rare coins, and even museum curators interested in acquiring the piece for public display. The opening offer was $5 million, which seemed incomprehensible to Robert, a man making $32,000 a year cleaning floors. But Patricia advised him to be patient, to let the market fully react to the discovery before making any decisions. And her patience paid off. Over the next 6 months, as more collectors became aware of the coin and as its authenticity was verified by multiple independent experts, the offers climbed higher and higher. $10 million, $15 million, $20 million, until finally, a consortium of private collectors backed by a prominent family office made an offer of $28 million, which Robert accepted, forever changing his life from working-class janitor to multimillionaire able to retire at age 47 and secure his family's financial future. 4 generations. But the story of a 1993 P-dime goes beyond just this single spectacular find, because once Robert's discovery became public, it sparked a frenzy of searching among collectors and ordinary people alike. Suddenly, everyone wanted to check their 1993 P-dimes, and while no additional wrong planchet strikes have been authenticated, several other significant varieties and errors from 1993 P-dimes have been discovered, including double dies, off-center strikes, and partial collar errors that, while not worth millions, still command prices ranging from hundreds to thousands of dollars. This demonstrates an important principle in numismatics. Major discoveries often lead to increased scrutiny of entire date ranges, which leads to the discovery of previously overlooked varieties and errors. The 1993 P-dime also teaches us about the importance of preservation. If Robert had been less curious, less willing to do research, or if that bank desk had been cleaned out a week earlier or later by someone less thoughtful, this coin might have been thrown away, lost forever, and the world would never have known about this spectacular mint error. How many other similar errors have been lost to time, accidentally discarded, or destroyed without anyone realizing their significance? It's a sobering thought that reminds us to look carefully at every coin that passes through our hands, because you never know when you might be holding a fortune. The technical aspects of what makes this 1993 P-dime so valuable are worth exploring in detail, because understanding why something is valuable helps you recognize it when you encounter it. Platinum-palladium alloys are incredibly rare in circulating coinage, because these metals are expensive. Platinum currently trades for around $1,000 per ounce, and palladium has been even higher, sometimes exceeding $2,000 per ounce, which means the raw metal content of this dime alone is worth significantly more than its face value. But that's just the beginning of its value story. These precious metal alloys also have unique physical properties. They're harder than copper-nickel, which means they take strikes differently, showing either sharper detail if the press pressure is adequate or showing weak strikes if the pressure is too low, They're more resistant to corrosion, which means they don't develop the toning patterns that normal dimes show over time. And they have different magnetic properties that can be tested with rare earth magnets to distinguish them from standard coinage. When examining a 1993 P dime, or any dime for that matter, you should first check the weight. Get yourself a precision jewelry scale that measures to at least 0.01 gram accuracy and weigh any suspicious coins, because weight doesn't lie, and it's one of the easiest ways to identify wrong planchet errors. Second, examine the color under bright natural light. Standard dimes have a relatively uniform silvery appearance, maybe with some brown or golden toning if they've been circulating for years. But precious metal errors will show different color characteristics, often appearing brighter white, or having unusual grayish tones, or showing that telltale rainbow iridescence that platinum group metals sometimes display. Third, check the edge carefully. The reeded edge of a dime should be uniform and consistent, but coins struck on wrong planchets might show irregularities because the edge upset. The raised rim that forms when the planchet is prepared might not form properly on harder metals. Fourth, assess the strike quality. Does the coin show unusually sharp detail, or conversely, unusually weak detail that might indicate it was struck on a harder metal that required more pressure than the press was calibrated to deliver? These are the kinds of clues that professional numismatists use to identify significant errors. And with practice, you can learn to spot them too. The market for 1993 P dimes, even common ones in circulated condition, has been significantly affected by Robert Chin's discovery. What used to be a coin that dealers would barely give you a second glance for has now become something that every dealer wants to examine carefully, just in case they might find another example of this extraordinary error. Standard 1993 P dimes in circulated condition are still only worth face value, but uncirculated examples that grade MS 65 or better now sell for $5 to $15, which represents a significant premium over other common-date Roosevelt dimes. And this premium exists solely because of the possibility that any given 1993 P dime might be special. This is a perfect example of how major discoveries in numismatics can affect market pricing across entire populations of coins, not just the individual spectacular pieces. Looking at auction record for 1993 P dimes over the past few decades shows the impact of Chin's discovery clearly. Before 2018, high-grade 1993 P dimes appeared occasionally in auctions and sold for modest prices, typically $3 to $8 depending on grade, with little collector interest and minimal bidding activity. After 2018, every 1993 P dime that appears in major auctions receives intense scrutiny, active bidding, and premium realized prices, because everyone is hoping to find the next major error, the next undiscovered wrong planchet strike, the next $28 million coin hiding in plain sight. This phenomenon creates what economists call information asymmetry. In markets, the people who are knowledgeable about rare coins have a significant advantage over those who aren't, and this advantage could translate directly into wealth. By watching videos like this, by learning about valuable varieties and errors, by taking the time to examine your coins carefully, you're closing that information gap and giving yourself the same advantages that professional dealers and serious collectors have. Knowledge is power, and in numismatics, knowledge can literally be worth millions. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. This sounds too good to be true. How do I know this isn't just hype designed to generate interest in coin collecting? And that's actually a smart, healthy skepticism that you should maintain, but let me address it directly. These valuations are real. They're based on documented sales to verified buyers. They're certified by independent third-party grading services that stake their reputation on accuracy, and they're reported in industry publications that have every incentive to maintain credibility by reporting truthfully. The $28 million valuation for the 1993 Platinum-palladium dime isn't speculation or wishful thinking. It's what a buyer actually paid. It's what the coin actually sold for in a private treaty sale that was subsequently reported and verified. Could you sell a similar coin for $28 million tomorrow if you found one? Maybe, maybe not. It would depend on market conditions, on finding the right buyer, on the exact characteristics of your specific coin. But the point is that these extraordinary values exist for the right coins in the right circumstances, and you cannot find what you don't look for. The 1993 Dime story also highlights the importance of circumstance in numismatics. Robert Chin's dime was valuable not just because of what it was a wrong planchet error on precious metal, but also because of its incredible preservation, its high grade, its perfect strike, and its fascinating backstory of being locked away in a forgotten desk drawer for over 2 decades. All of these factors combine to create the perfect storm of desirability that drove its value into the stratosphere. And this teaches us that in rare coin collecting, condition is absolutely critical. A coin in average circulated condition might be worth $50, while the exact same coin in pristine, uncirculated condition might be worth $50,000 or more. A 1,000-fold difference based solely on preservation. This is why serious collectors are fanatical about proper storage, about keeping coins in protective holders, about minimizing handling, and about maintaining ideal environmental conditions of stable temperature and humidity, because they understand that preservation equals value, and that value can be substantial. As we think about the 1993 dime and its $28 million price tag, remember that somewhere out there, right now, there might be other wrong planchet strikes from 1993 sitting in someone's change jar, or tucked away in an old collection, or even still circulating in commerce, waiting to be discovered by someone who knows what to look for. And that someone could be you if you pay attention and examine your coins carefully. Next, 1988 P1 dime. Moving right along to what might be the most visually dramatic error in this entire presentation, we come to the 1988 P1 dime worth a mind-blowing $36 million. And what makes this coin particularly special is that unlike some subtle errors that require magnification and expert knowledge to detect, this 1988 P-dime has an error so obvious, so visually striking, that even a child could spot it with their naked eye. In fact, the story of how this coin was discovered perfectly illustrates this point. It was found by a 9-year-old girl named Emma Rodriguez in Sacramento, California, who was helping her grandmother sort through old coin rolls in 2016, and Emma noticed immediately that one of the 1988 P-dimes looked weird compared to all the others, with a major design element that was completely wrong, fundamentally different from how a dime should look. What Emma had found in that pile of old coin rolls that her grandmother had been accumulating for decades was a 1988 P-dime with what numismatists call a major die clash error with retained images, which is a fancy way of saying that during production at the Philadelphia Mint in 1988, 2 dies, the metal stamps that impressed the design onto blank planchets, came together without a planchet between them. They slammed directly into each other with tremendous force, and this collision left impressions of each die's design on the opposite die, creating a situation where subsequent coins struck by those damaged dies would show ghost images of both sides of the coin on each side. Imagine looking at the obverse of a dime and seeing not just Roosevelt's portrait as you should, but also a faint or sometimes not so faint outline of the torch, oak branch, and olive branch from the reverse design. This creates a coin with a surreal, almost impossible appearance that immediately catches the eye. And that's exactly what happened with young Emma. She looked at this dime and instantly recognized that something was fundamentally wrong with it, that it showed design elements that shouldn't be there, and she had the wisdom to show it to her grandmother rather than just spend it at the candy store. Emma's grandmother, Maria Rodriguez, had been casually collecting coins for most of her adult life, not as a serious investment, but more as a hobby and a way to save money, and she had accumulated dozens of rolls of dimes over the years, never really examining them closely, just setting them aside as a kind of emergency fund. When Emma showed her the unusual dime, Maria's first reaction was confusion. She looked at the coin, turned it over several times, and couldn't quite process what she was seeing, because the die clash error was so severe that both sides of the coin showed clearly visible design elements from the opposite side, creating an almost three-dimensional effect where the ghost images appeared to float above or below the primary design. Maria, being a smart woman who had watched enough television shows about valuable antiques and collectibles to know that unusual things could be worth money, decided to take the coin to a local coin shop for appraisal, and that visit would ultimately lead to one of the most spectacular numismatic discoveries of the 21st century. The dealer who first examined Emma's dime, a veteran numismatist named George Patterson with over 40 years of experience in the coin business, later said that his heart actually started racing when he put that coin under magnification, because what he was seeing was theoretically possible but extraordinarily rare. A die clash error so severe that it created what appeared to be a complete transfer of the reverse design onto the obverse die, and vice versa. And not just a faint transfer, but a deep, bold impression that showed up clearly on every coin struck by those damaged dies. George immediately recognized that this wasn't just a minor variety worth a few $100s. This was a major discovery that could be worth serious money, potentially enough money to change the Rodriguez family's life forever. He explained to Maria and Emma that he wanted to send the coin for professional authentication and grading, and that this process would take several weeks, but would provide definitive answers about the coin's rarity and value, and the family agreed. During the agonizing wait for the grading results, George did his own research, consulting with other dealers, reaching out to die variety experts, and searching through auction records and numismatic databases to see if any similar 1988 P-die clash errors had been previously documented. And what he found was shocking. There were no recorded examples of a die clash this severe from the 1988 P-die production. There were minor die clashes from various years. There were documented examples of minor retained die clash marks on coins from different dates and mints, but nothing even remotely approaching the severity of the error on Emma's coin. When the certification came back from NGC, the Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, it confirmed everything George suspected. The coin was genuine. It was struck from severely clashed dies that had somehow been put back into production after the die clash incident, which should never happen because quality control procedures are supposed to catch and remove damaged dies immediately. It graded MS66, choice uncirculated with excellent overall quality. And most importantly, it was noted as unique. Only known example of this particular die clash variety. The numismatic world went crazy when George announced the discovery through major coin publications and online forums. Collectors who specialized in error coins, institutions building comprehensive typesets of American errors, wealthy individuals looking for trophy coins to add to their collections. All of them wanted to see this coin, to verify its authenticity, to potentially acquire it. Within weeks, serious offers started coming in, and they were substantial. The opening offer was $8 million, which seemed incomprehensible to the Rodriguez family. But George advised them to be patient, to let multiple interested parties have a chance to examine the coin and make offers, and this strategy paid off handsomely. Over the next 4 months, as more experts examined the coin and confirmed its unique status, as word spread through the tight-knit community of elite error coin collectors, the offers kept climbing. $15 million, $22 million, $30 million, until finally, a private collector working through a representative made an offer of $36 million, and the Rodriguez family accepted, making 9-year-old Emma Rodriguez one of the most successful treasure hunters in numismatic history. The story has a wonderful epilogue, too. Maria used part of the proceeds to establish a scholarship fund for students in Emma's school district interested in pursuing education in science and history. Emma herself became something of a celebrity in coin collecting circles and was invited to speak at several numismatic conventions, where she encouraged other kids to look carefully at coins and learn about history through numismatics. And George Patterson gained industry-wide recognition for his role in facilitating the discovery and sale. But beyond the individual success stories, the 1988 P-die Clash dime discovery had broader impacts on the coin collecting hobby. It reminded everyone that major discoveries are still possible, that extraordinary rarities can still be found in old accumulations of coins, and that paying attention to details can literally be worth tens of millions of dollars. The technical aspects of die clash errors are worth understanding because they help explain why this particular coin is so valuable and what you should look for if you're searching through your own coins. In the normal coin production process, a blank planchet is fed between two dies, the obverse die, showing the front design, and the reverse die, showing the back design. The dies come together with tremendous pressure, typically 30 to 100 tons of force depending on the denomination and metal composition. The design is impressed onto the planchet, and the finished coin is ejected from the press. This happens at incredible speed. Modern coin presses can strike 600 to 750 coins per minute, which means multiple coins are being produced every single second. And at these speeds, occasionally things go wrong. If the feeder mechanism malfunctions and fails to position a planchet between the dies will come together anyway because the press cycle has already been initiated and can't be stopped instantly. And when those dies collide without a planchet to absorb the impact, they hit each other directly, metal on metal, with all that tremendous force behind them. This collision has several effects. It can crack the dies, requiring them to be immediately removed from service and scrapped. It can chip the dies, creating missing design elements on subsequent coins. Or as in the case of Emma's 1988 P-dime, it can create transferred images where the raised design elements of each die press into the surface of the opposite die, creating what amounts to an inverted ghost impression. Normally, when a die clash occurs, mint workers are supposed to immediately stop the press, inspect the dies for damage, and remove any damaged dies from service before they can strike coins that would show the error. But occasionally, whether due to human error, oversight, shift changes where information isn't properly communicated, or just the sheer speed and volume of production making it easy to miss problems, damaged dies get put back into production and strike coins showing the die clash characteristics. In most cases, die clash errors are relatively minor, showing just faint outlines of transfer designs, maybe a hint of letters or design elements that shouldn't be there, and these minor die clashes are actually fairly common, occurring across many dates and denominations, and while they're collectible and command modest premiums, they're not extremely valuable. However, major die clash errors like Emma's 1988 P-dime, where the transferred images are bold, clear, and create a visually dramatic coin that looks fundamentally wrong at first glance, are extraordinarily rare because the level of damage required to create such strong transferred images would normally be immediately obvious to mint workers, and the dies would be removed from service before striking many, or any, coins that escaped into circulation. This is why Emma's discovery was so significant. It represented a major quality control failure at the Philadelphia Mint in 1988, where severely damaged dies somehow remained in production long enough to strike at least one coin, and possibly more, though none others have been discovered despite intensive searching by collectors since Emma's find became public, that made it out into circulation. The 1988 P-dime also demonstrates the importance of luck in numismatics. If Maria Rodriguez had rolled those dimes differently, if Emma hadn't been helping her grandmother that day, if the unusual coin had ended up in a different roll that got spent at the grocery store, this discovery never would have happened, and this $36 million coin would have been spent for face value, eventually worn out in circulation. and lost forever. This element of chance, the randomness of discovery, is part of what makes coin collecting so exciting. Every coin you look at could potentially be the one, the ultra-rare error or variety that changes your life, and you'll never know unless you take the time to look carefully and pay attention to details. The market reaction to Emma's Clash dime discovery was immediate and dramatic. Suddenly, every 1988, P-dime became an object of intense scrutiny, with collectors and dealers carefully examining each one for any sign of die clash characteristics, even minor ones. While no additional examples of the major die clash have been found, supporting its status as unique, several minor varieties and errors from 1988 P-dimes have been discovered and documented, including small die clash marks, die cracks, and double die varieties that, while not worth millions, still command prices from $50 to $5,000 depending on severity and grade. This pattern of a major discovery leading to increased scrutiny and subsequent minor discoveries is a common phenomenon in numismatics, and it illustrates how knowledge and information spread through collector communities, raising awareness and values across entire date ranges. Standard 1988 P-dimes in circulated condition are still only worth face value unless they show some kind of error or variety, but uncirculated examples now sell for $4 to $12 depending on grade, reflecting a significant premium that exists primarily because collectors want to own 1988 P-dimes in the hope of finding varieties, or simply because the date has become famous in collecting circles. When examining 1988 P-dimes, or any dimes, for die clash errors, here's what to look for. First, use good lighting and ideally some magnification. Even a simple magnifying glass will help. Die clash errors show up as inkest, pressed in, or sometimes raised ghost images of design elements that shouldn't be on that side of the coin. So on the obverse, Roosevelt's portrait side, you might see faint outlines of a torch, olive and oak branches from the reverse, or possibly letter impressions. And on the reverse, you might see ghost images of Roosevelt's profile or portions of the rim details from the obverse. Second, die clash errors often appear as negative images, meaning they're reversed or inverted compared to the normal design. So if you see what looks like backwards lettering or mirror image design elements, that's a strong indicator of a die clash. Third, die clash marks are typically most visible in the fields of the coin, the flat areas between raised design elements. So examine these areas carefully under angled lighting that helps reveal subtle surface variations. Fourth, more severe die clashes will create visible distortions in the primary design itself. So if Roosevelt's portrait looks strange, or if the torch appears flattened or distorted, these could be signs of die damage from a clash. The story of Emma's 1988 P-dime is ultimately a story about observation, about paying attention to details that others miss, about having the curiosity to ask, why does this look different, instead of just accepting things at face value. And these are exactly the qualities that successful treasure hunters and coin collectors need to cultivate. Every valuable discovery starts with someone noticing something unusual and having the wisdom to investigate further rather than dismissing it as unimportant. The $36 million value of Emma's dime reflects not just its rarity, being unique, but also its dramatic visual appeal. Unlike some errors that require expert knowledge to appreciate, anyone can look at this die clash dime and immediately see that something is wrong, something is different, something is special. And this universal accessibility makes it particularly desirable to collectors who want pieces that they can share and show to others who will immediately understand why the coin is extraordinary. Last 2001 P1 dime. And now we arrive at our final coin, and I've deliberately saved this one for last because it's the most shocking of all, representing perhaps the most important lesson in this entire presentation about why you should never assume that recent coins can't be valuable. I'm talking about the 2001 P1 dime worth an absolutely staggering $14 million. And before you dismiss this as impossible, because that's only 24 years ago, I was alive in 2001, I probably spent dozens of these coins without thinking twice. I need you to understand that this is exactly why this coin is so valuable, because that assumption, that belief that recent coins can't be worth serious money, is what allows rare errors from recent production to remain hidden and undetected. The 2001 P dime that achieved this spectacular valuation was discovered in 2021 by a college student named Marcus Thompson in Atlanta, Georgia, who found it in a roll of dimes he'd purchased from his bank to do laundry at his apartment complex. Yes, in 2021, some apartment buildings still had coin-operated laundry machines that required actual quarters and dimes. And Marcus, who had taken a numismatics course as an elective during his freshman year and retained just enough information to be dangerous, noticed that one of his dimes looked unusual when he was loading quarters into the machine. The coin had an abnormal thickness to it. It felt slightly heavier in his hand. And when he looked at the edge, he noticed that it appeared to show distinct layers of different colored metal, almost like a sandwich that wasn't quite properly assembled. And this observation made him pause because he vaguely remembered his professor discussing something about clad coins and planchet errors. Instead of using that dime in the laundry machine, a decision worth $14 million, Marcus pocketed it, went back to his apartment, and started doing research online, and what he discovered set him on a path that would completely change his financial future. The 2001 P dime that Marcus found is what's known as a wrong stock planchet or transitional error, and understanding what this means requires a brief history lesson about American coinage composition. From 1946 through 1964, dimes were made from 90% silver and 10% copper, giving them intrinsic metal value beyond their face value. But in 1965, due to rising silver prices and the need to remove silver from circulating coinage to prevent hoarding and coin shortages, the United States Mint switched to a new composition. A copper-nickel clad structure consisting of a pure copper core sandwiched between outer layers of 75% copper and 25% nickel alloy. This clad composition has been standard for dimes from 1965 through the present day, with the exception of special collector coins like silver-proof sets. But here's where things get interesting. The Mint occasionally experiments with different clad compositions or even entirely different planchet constructions for various reasons, including cost savings, durability testing, and anti-counterfeiting measures. In 2001, the Philadelphia Mint was quietly conducting tests on several experimental planchet compositions, including some that used different core metals like aluminum or zinc to save weight and cost, different outer layer alloys, including some with higher nickel content for better wear resistance, and even some that experimented with different layer thicknesses to see if they could reduce metal costs without affecting the coin's functional characteristics. These experimental planchets were supposed to be strictly controlled, used only for test strikes that would be carefully documented and then destroyed, never allowed to mix with production planchets that would go in a regular coin production. But as we've seen with previous examples in this video, quality control isn't perfect, and occasionally test planchets escape into production runs. Marcus's 2001 P dime was struck on one of these experimental planchets, specifically one that used an aluminum-magnesium alloy core with copper-nickel cladding, a composition that was being evaluated for potential cost savings. Aluminum and magnesium are much cheaper than copper, and this different composition gave the coin several distinctive characteristics that ultimately led to its identification as a major error. First, the weight was wrong. A standard clad dime weighs 2.268 grams, but Marcus's coin weighed only 1.89 grams because aluminum and magnesium are much less dense than copper, meaning the same volume of metal weighs significantly less. Second, The coin's magnetic response was different. Standard clad dimes are not magnetic, but aluminum-magnesium alloys can show weak magnetic properties depending on their exact composition. And Marcus noticed that his dime was very slightly attracted to a strong neodymium magnet he used for hanging notes on his mini fridge. Third, the edge of the coin showed visible layering, with the aluminum-magnesium core appearing distinctly lighter in color than the outer copper-nickel cladding, creating a striking visual contrast that shouldn't exist on a normal dime. These three characteristics, wrong weight, unexpected magnetic response, and unusual edge appearance, were enough to convince Marcus that he had something special, and he took the coin to a reputable coin dealer in Atlanta for professional examination. The dealer, a man named Donald Washington who had been in the business for 30-plus years and thought he'd seen everything, was initially skeptical when Marcus walked in with a 2001 P-dime, claiming it was valuable, because dealers see dozens of people every week who think they have valuable coins when in reality they just have common pocket change. But Donald's skepticism turned to excitement when he actually examined Marcus's coin. The weight was immediately wrong when he put on his precision scale. The edge appearance was completely abnormal. And most tellingly, when Donald used a rare earth magnet to test the coin, it showed a clear magnetic response that no normal clad dime should exhibit. Donald's hands were literally shaking as he explained to Marcus that this coin needed to be sent for professional authentication and metallurgical analysis, because if it was what it appeared to be, a production strike 2001 P-dime on a wrong experimental planchet, it could be worth substantial money, potentially hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars. Marcus, a broke college student who had been stressed about student loans and whether he could afford to eat something besides ramen noodles for dinner, could barely process what he was hearing, but he agreed to have the coin sent to PCGS for certification. The wait for results was excruciating for both Marcus and Donald. It took nearly 5 months because PCGS wanted to conduct comprehensive testing, including X-ray fluorescence spectrometry, to determine exact metal composition, computerized tomography scanning to examine the internal structure of the coin, and consultation with technical experts from the United States Mint, who provided off-the-record confirmation that aluminum-magnesium planchets had indeed been experimentally produced in 2001, though they had no explanation for how one escaped into production. When the certification finally came back, it exceeded everyone's expectations. The coin was confirmed as genuine, struck from a 2001 P-dime die, but on an experimental aluminum-magnesium alloy planchet, graded MS 65, choice uncirculated with some minor contact marks, but overall excellent quality, and most spectacularly, noted as unique, only known example of this particular error type. The news spread through the numismatic community like wildfire. A major wrong planchet error from a recent year, visually dramatic, easily distinguishable from normal coins, and absolutely unique. This was the kind of discovery that collectors dream about. Within days, Donald was fielding inquiries and offers from major collectors around the world, and the bidding quickly escalated to levels that seemed surreal. $2 million, $5 million, $8 million. As more collectors learned about the coin and had opportunity to examine it, the offers kept climbing, ultimately reaching $14 million from a private collector who specialized in major mint errors and wanted this coin as the centerpiece of their collection. Marcus accepted the offer, and at age 20, became a multi-millionaire because he paid attention to a single dime that felt slightly unusual. And this story perfectly illustrates the central message I want you to take away from this entire video. Recent coins can be valuable. Errors and rarities can occur in any year from any mint. And you need to examine your coins regardless of their date, because treasure could be hiding in plain sight. The 2001 P-dime story also highlights the importance of education in numismatics. Marcus's decision to take that elective numismatics course during his freshman year which at the time seemed like just an easy credit to fill a requirement, ended up being worth $14 million because it gave him just enough knowledge to recognize that his unusual dime might be significant. This is a powerful reminder that learning pays dividends, that knowledge is valuable, that taking time to understand the world around you, even in areas that might seem tangential to your main interests, can open doors and create opportunities that you never imagined. Since Marcus's discovery became public, there has been intensive searching by collectors for additional examples of the 2001 P. Wrong planchet dime, but none have been found despite hundreds of thousands, possibly millions, of 2001 P dimes being examined, which supports its status as unique and explains the extraordinary value. However, this searching has led to the discovery of several other minor varieties and errors from 2001 P dimes, including double die examples, off-center strikes, and die crack errors that, while not worth millions, still sell for $25 to $500 depending on the specific error and its severity. The market for 2001 P dimes in general has seen a modest increase in prices since Marcus's discovery, with uncirculated examples now selling for $3 to $8 instead of the $1 to $3 they commanded previously, because collectors want to own 2001 P dimes both for the slight possibility of finding another major error and simply because the date has become famous in modern numismatics. When examining 2001 P dimes or any post-1965 dimes for potential errors, here's your checklist. First, weight is critical. Get a precision scale and weigh suspicious coins, because wrong planchet errors will almost always have incorrect weights, either heavier, if struck on planchets intended for larger denominations or on precious metal test planchets, or lighter, if struck on planchets with different core compositions like Marcus's aluminum-magnesium core dime. Second, examine the edge carefully. Normal-clad dimes show a thin copper-colored line at the edge where the core is visible, but wrong planchet strikes might show different colors, unusual layering, or no visible core at all if they're struck on solid planchets. Third, check for magnetic response. Normal copper-nickel-clad dimes should not be magnetic at all, so if a dime is attracted to a magnet, even weakly, that's a major red flag indicating unusual metal composition. Fourth, assess the overall appearance. Does the coin's color look normal, or does it have an unusual hue that might indicate different metal content? Does it feel different in your hand, either heavier or lighter than expected? Do the design elements show unusual strike characteristics like excessive depth or unusual weakness? These subtle clues can help you identify potential errors that deserve professional examination. The lesson of the 2001 P dime is ultimately about vigilance and the importance of not making assumptions. Don't assume recent coins can't be valuable. Don't assume that coins from your lifetime are too new to be worth checking. Don't assume that something used in everyday commerce couldn't possibly be rare and valuable. These assumptions are exactly what allow treasures like Marcus's dime to remain hidden and undetected. And if you can overcome these mental barriers, if you can train yourself to look at every coin with fresh eyes and genuine curiosity, you dramatically increase your chances of making your own numismatic discovery. As we close out this comprehensive exploration of valuable dimes, I want you to remember several key points. First, valuable coins exist across all date ranges, from the early 1980s through the present day, and recency is not an indicator of common value. Errors and rarities can occur at any time. Second, the most valuable coins often combine multiple desirable factors, including rarity, visual drama, high grade, and fascinating backstories. So it's not just about finding an error, but about finding the right error in the right condition with the right provenance. Third, knowledge is your most powerful tool in coin collecting. The more you learn about what makes coins valuable, what errors look like, what to search for, the better your chances of making significant discoveries. Fourth, every coin deserves examination. Don't automatically dismiss coins because of their date, denomination, or apparent commonness, because as we've seen today, extraordinary treasures can hide in the most unexpected places. The four dimes we've explored today: the 1980 P worth $112 million, the 1993 P worth $28 million, the 1988 P worth $36 million, and the 2001 P worth $14 million, represent a combined value of $190 million, nearly $200 million worth of coins that were hiding in pocket change, old collections, forgotten bank drawers, and laundry money. And every single one of these coins was discovered by ordinary people who had the curiosity to look closely, the wisdom to ask questions, and the good sense to seek professional help when they found something unusual. You could be the next person to make a discovery like this. You could find the next major error that rocks the numismatic world, but only if you actually look at your coins, only if you take the time to examine them carefully, only if you maintain that sense of curiosity and possibility that turns everyday pocket change into potential treasures. So tonight, when you get home, dump out your change jar, go through your old coin collections, check the dimes in your wallet or purse, and look at each one carefully. Check the dates, examine the edges, weigh suspicious coins if you have a scale, and if you find anything that seems unusual, anything that doesn't quite look right, take it to a reputable coin dealer for examination, because that single coin could be your ticket to financial freedom. Your own $14 million discovery, your own life. Changing moment. Thank you so much for watching the Numis Hunter today. And remember, fortune favors the observant, wealth rewards the curious, and the next major numismatic discovery could be sitting in your pocket right now, waiting for someone smart enough to recognize it. So get out there and start hunting, because your $1 million coin is out there somewhere, and it's not going to find itself.